Well, good morning. Oh, thank you for the reply. It's great to be here with you all and be here at Jessup. I am new to knowing about William Jessup, and I'm honored to be here. And I got to tour your campus this morning, and it is a beautiful campus. I am really impressed with how clean it is and just the beautiful architecture. And I know that there's even more good work that's going on in the actual classrooms and all the activities. It seems like you have many activities going on here at Jessup, and it's just been a joy for me to get to join in with you guys at the Jessup family and be a part. I realize that spring break is next week, and it seems like midterms are happening this week, and so you probably have a lot of assignments on your mind and things that I'm sure your brain could be thinking about instead of having to listen to me, who is here at this chapel. But I believe that God has purpose in everything, and that there's a purpose that we are all here today. So I just encourage you to try and take this time to set aside the distractions of homework and midterms and thinking of spring break plans, and try and listen to what God has for you this morning. And I just pray that I'll be faithful to hopefully bring a message that can be at least an encouragement to you all. So I love that I get to be here on the Career and Calling Week. That is something that I have definitely had a significant time of my life wrestling through. What does it mean to have a calling, and what does that look like for a career? And I hope to cover three big questions that I think I worked through in my college years of what I was to do after college that helped me in determining my career and what that path was going to look like. So those three questions are: what does it mean to serve God in my work? That is a big question that I had. What is the cost of truly serving God, and what does that look like when it's playing out? What is the cost that we have to be willing to take? And then also, who can do this? So with the first question that we're going to be diving into of what does it mean to serve God in my work, I want to go back to when I was in high school. I grew up in a Christian home, and so I came to a faith in Jesus Christ at a young age, but it was my junior year of high school when I was 17 years old. I was attending a Christian leadership camp. This was called Super Summer, and I went every summer and absolutely loved it. It was a great time to really be challenged as a Christian and to pursue leadership and to serve the Lord. And as a 17-year-old, I remember that week feeling really convicted about being all in with my faith. I mentioned I had become a Christian when I was young, but kind of just saw my faith as something that was, a part of me, but it wasn't the whole of my identity. I tried to put my identity in a lot of other things, as sports and academics, and as a 17-year-old, started to feel the conviction that my identity needed to be in Christ alone. And I didn't know what to do with that, of being all in for Christ, and so as a 17-year-old, I thought maybe that means I'm called to be in ministry. Maybe that means God's calling me to be serve in a church or work in vocational ministry in some way. So that week at that camp, I decided that's what I felt God was calling me to, and that's kind of what my plan would be. So fast forward a few years, I'm in college, and I'm trying to figure out what to study and what I want to do with my life, and really felt led into business. I really wanted to be a part of the family business, but I didn't know how to reconcile that conviction of being all in for Christ with working in business, what could be considered a secular vocation. So it was a journey that kind of led me to realize that as a 17-year-old, God was indeed calling me to be all in, but that didn't mean I had to be only serving in a church. That's not the only way we serve the Lord. We should be serving the Lord in whatever area of work we go into, whether that's business or music or science. And I love that Jessup has areas of study in all of these different aspects of history. And, I was looking online at some of the different opportunities with psychology and biology. And that's fantastic, because we need good people that are excellent and people of faith in all of these areas. And so I came to kind of realize that could be where God was taking me as a 17-year-old, was leading me to Him to be fully devoted to Him, but also calling me into business and to work in my family business. So I want to share a little bit about what our family business is. You may have heard of Hobby Lobby. My grandpa, David Green, is the founder and CEO of Hobby Lobby. He always loved retail. When he was in high school, he was working at a retail company and graduated and went full-time working for this business and saw a lot of success. He saw really God, his hand on him and his work in business, and became one of the youngest managers for this company early on. And he realized, he could maybe have some success working for himself. So he started in 1970. The first endeavor for Hobby Lobby was making miniature picture frames. So my grandpa, that is how Hobby Lobby got started. This is a picture of my grandpa and his partner. They were making mini picture frames and trying to sell these to different distributors. And that was in 1970. He still worked full-time for the retail company he was with, and then kind of on the weekends and on the side, he would make these picture frames. It was in 1972 that he bought his first retail space. So this is a picture of the place where the first Hobby Lobby was. It was a 300 square foot space, so it was really small, and that was the first Hobby Lobby in 1972. My grandpa quit his other full-time job and went full-time into working at Hobby Lobby at that point, and in the back half of the store, they would manufacture the picture frames. So my grandma was glad they weren't doing this on the dining room table anymore. And they would sell the picture frames in the front half of that store. And that's how the company began. It was a $600 loan with a 300 square foot space selling mini picture frames. We've continued to see the company grow over the years. This shows kind of where our sales are at today. We have over 750 stores in 48 states, so we're in every state but Hawaii and Alaska, and our sales are over $4 billion. And so we really give God the credit for just the growth that we've seen, but it was slow, steady, consistent. You can see there, we have for the first numbers in 1991, but the company actually started in 72. So from 72 to 91, it was really slow. It just kind of hardly moved at all. So it was just that faithful perseverance that my grandpa had to continue working and continue to be faithful. To see the growth that we have. And this is our corporate office, so this is where I work. It's a kind of aerial view, so you see 5 buildings there, and there's actually 2 more buildings that we have on the corporate campus that aren't pictured. Our corporate office has 9 million square feet. We have 5,000 employees there in Oklahoma City where I work, and nationwide we have 32,000 employees now. So it's amazing to see the way that God has just grown this company over time and over faithful, just giving it over to him. And so it was, that slow, steady growth. We just kept working away at our business, but there was a defining moment that really allowed us to see the company as God's company, and that was in 1985. In the Midwest, the oil boom had bust, and so a lot of people were hard up for money. People did not have disposable income anymore, and everyone was struggling. And so people weren't going to Hobby Lobby stores to buy craft supplies. And most of our stores were in Oklahoma and Texas, where the kind of hardest time during that season was. So our numbers were really bad. It was the only year we ever did not make a profit. And my grandpa recalls he'd been able to rely on his own strength a lot before this year, before 85. He was he's a brilliant businessman and retailer. So he'd been able to rely on himself a lot for the business. But in 1985, it kind of came to a point where he didn't think that the company was going to be able to make it. He couldn't figure out how to make it work. And the whole family was working in the business. So he had his 3 children, his wife, and 2 of his nephews were all working there. So if the company wasn't going to make it, he wanted to let everyone know that they might need to be looking. So he called together a family business meeting and let everyone know, we might have to close our doors. We're not sure we're going to make it through this season. And my uncle Mart, who is his oldest son, said, "That's okay, Grandpa. We know that we can trust God and that God will provide." And that was really a significant moment for my grandpa's life, because it reminded him that he didn't have to carry the burden and the weight of being the one that had to make it happen and had to be the one to provide these jobs, that he realized, I've been trying to do this myself in my own power, but God is the one that really is in control. So it was a time when our family kind of laid the business at God's feet and said, this is yours. We want to be stewards of this. If you want this to succeed, then you're the one that's going to make that happen, and we will work our hardest to do our part and then leave it over to you and trust in you with that. So kind of through that and through different experiences as a company, we've come to have different values that we put at the entrance of all of our stores and at the entrance of our corporate offices. So if you come in any of our corporate offices, you'll see these 2 values. These are just 2 of 4 values, and it's honoring the Lord in all that we do by operating the company in a manner consistent with biblical principles. This is our first value that we want to have as a foundation. And then we have a few others that talk about what we want to do with our customers and how we want to serve our employees and customers. But then we end with this value, which is that we believe it is by God's grace and provision that Hobby Lobby has endured. He's been faithful in the past, and we trust him for the future. So these values of our company, our business, our secular business, was really born out of wrestling through seeing that we have to have God in every aspect of what we do, even in our business, in the day-to-day decisions, in the foundation of what we believe for our company. So what does it mean to serve God? It means incorporating God in every area of life, in all of the aspects. With Hobby Lobby, we've tried to do that in a few different ways, and I'll just share some examples just to give you an idea. But these aren't the only ways that this can happen. But with our company, we give 50% of our profits to faith-based nonprofits every year. So as a company, we donate half our profits to do kingdom work around the world. So that's just one way that we want to live the biblical principle of being generous and giving, being good stewards and giving it back to God's kingdom. We also are closed on Sundays, so I don't know if you ever had an experience where you're pulling into Hobby Lobby on a Sunday, just need to go grab something, and you realize it's Sunday, it's closed. It can be very frustrating. I've had the experience myself. Sorry about that, but we do this because we want our employees to be able to be in a place of worship, if that is what they want, or to be with their families and spend time with family as we value family in the way that God has created us to have a day of rest. So that is one of the ways, again, in our company that we just try and honor the Lord. We also try and serve our employees well by having a company-wide minimum wage of over $15. So anyone that works for our company, starting out, a minimum wage for a full-time employee is going to be over $15. And we implemented that a few years ago because we just want to care for our employees so that our employees are provided for and care for them and their families and for the hard work that they are doing to make our company possible. They're the ones that are out there every day working, and we're just so grateful for them. On our corporate office, we also have chaplains that serve the corporate campus so that any of our employees can actually go to class once a week and learn how to biblically handle finances or how to biblically handle conflict resolution. They can take an Old Testament or a New Testament class, and they can do that on the clock. So they'll be paid to sit for an hour a week in a class that our chaplains will lead and actually get to learn about what God teaches in these different areas. So those are just a few ways of caring for our employees that we try and live out serving God in our workplace. And that's not the only ways. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that other people are doing this in their business or in the marketplace. And I just hope that that encourages you to think creatively of what is the vocation God has for you in whatever area it is. What are the ways that you can specifically be serving the Lord, and to consider that going forward? So the second question that we want to look at is, what is the cost of truly serving God? These experiences that we have that can all be significant. There are moments in life that leave a marker. And in 2012, my family had another significant moment that really kind of tested what we were willing to give up in order to stick to our faith. So in 2012, we had the HHS mandate came down, and you may have heard, if you've seen Hobby Lobby in the news at all, you've probably heard that we went to a Supreme Court case called Hobby Lobby versus Burtwell. So the situation was that we we're being mandated by the HHS mandate that we had to cover 20 FDA-approved drugs and devices that were contraceptives and also the morning after pill abortifacients. So we were fine covering 16 of those, but there were 4 that we did not agree with because we felt that they ended life. And because of our biblical view of valuing life and the sanctity of life, that went against our faith. So what do you do when the government is mandating you to do something, and if you don't comply with the mandate, they'll fine you $1.2 million a day. So if we didn't offer these 4 drugs and devices that you could get over the counter for $20, the government would fine us $1.2 million a day. So that's not sustainable. So we had to, as a family, come together and consider what we were going to do. Were we going to say, okay, yeah, we'll just go ahead and go with what the government is telling us? Or are we going to fight for what we believe is right and what we believe in our faith? So as a family, we had to decide to move forward with that and to pursue through the judicial system, hoping that we could have this overturned and be able to continue to operate our company according to our deeply held religious convictions. And it was not an easy journey and not something we ever expected to have to go through. We love our country and love the freedoms that we've had here. And so we knew we just had to pursue this Supreme Court case so that we could continue to have those freedoms. So we were so grateful that God brought us through that and we saw a victory in that. But it was one of those times where we had to be willing to say, we don't know what the outcome of this case will be. And it could be that we might have to lose the company. We might lose at the Supreme Court. That's a very real possibility. And are we willing to let our faith cost us everything, even maybe our company that my grandpa spent over 40 years of his life building? But we have to hold everything with an open hand and say that we put our faith first and be willing to let whatever we do be sacrificed in order to have our faith stand intact. And I do want to make a point, though, about work, because I think that when we say our work and our faith should cost us everything, I do think that we have to be careful, though, not to let our work cost us our integrity or cost us our family or sacrifice things that God has spoken as important for the sake of saying that we're doing Christian ministry. So we do have to serve the Lord with everything that we have, but we also have to value our family that God has entrusted us with and our integrity. So while we hold on to our integrity and our faith and our family, we do have to be willing to sacrifice everything. So I love that in Matthew 16:24, it says, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." And I thought just that line, let him deny himself, I was trying to think, what does that look like? What does that mean? So I looked up in one commentary, and it said, as far as for let him deny himself, that is a rule that can never be too much observed. Let him in all things deny his own will, however pleasing, and do the will of God, however painful. So however painful at times following God may be, that is the path we are called to. And we have to be willing to be all in whatever area of work God places you in. So as we give God everything, he does give us blessings in return. There are so many different blessings that my family has received after walking through trials that we never would have expected. One of which I'll share with you is just getting to be a part of Museum of the Bible. My dad is the founder and board chair of Museum of the Bible. This is a museum that's opening in Washington, D.C., and we would have never imagined getting to be a part of these significant blessings. But these blessings came out of trials that we walked through, of being willing to say, yes, God, whatever you have for us. And this is going to be a museum that opens in Washington, D.C. in November and hopefully impacts our country and the world. And similarly, my Uncle Mart, he, through some different things that he had to sacrifice and a journey that he had that God called him to, he ended up working with Every Tribe, Every Nation. He founded Every Tribe, Every Nation, which is a group that brings together all the major Bible translators in the world in order to work together and be synchronized in their efforts to create the Bible in every translation in the world, because there are still 1,900 languages that do not have the Bible. 1,900 languages, people that have zero access to the Bible. We want to see that end by 2030, and so that is the goal of Every Tribe, Every Nation, is to work together to see Bible poverty eradicated. That's kind of their mission. So there are these really incredible projects that we wouldn't have gotten to be a part of if we hadn't said, yes, God, we're willing to give half of our finances to Christian endeavors. And yes, we're willing to make these other sacrifices that have opened doors for these things. So whenever we make sacrifices for our faith, you never know the blessing that you will get in return. It's not always going to be in the way you expected it, but God is faithful, and he does bring joy and fulfillment through being faithful. So the last question is, who can do this? These things may sound great, but who is called to do this? And I would say, I've talked a lot about my family and our experiences, but we're not special and we're not unique in any of this. We're all called to be all in for Christ, and anyone can do this. So in whatever area of work you go into, whether it's worship or theology, or if you're studying biblical studies, or if you're moving towards one of maybe the other 7 mountains of influence, or a secular position in business or the marketplace or science, whatever it is, we're all called to consider, how can we be faithful in that particular area? How can we follow the Lord in each area of our lives? In our family, in our work, in our service to one another, may we all be faithful. So that is the challenge for all of you today, is that whatever you do, that you would be all in for Christ. That doesn't mean, like I mistakenly thought when I was 17, that you have to be serving only at a church, although that is wonderful work. But we can be all in for Christ in every area. So I want to share, kind of as I wrap up a little bit in a few minutes, just one story of someone who I think did this with excellence, was living her life and with full devotion to the Lord, but it's probably someone you've never heard of. Her name was Marie, and she was born in the early 1900s. She was a pastor's wife, so she did work in the church with her husband. She loved serving in the church alongside her husband. And she had 6 kids, and her and her husband would travel and serve different churches kind of in Kansas and Texas and Oklahoma. And they always served in small churches, so less than 100 people. So I'm sure you could imagine, pastors are not super well-off people. They're not usually the highest paid, but especially for a pastor that's serving these small churches and they have 6 kids, there was not a lot to go around. But Marie always had a great attitude about it and did what she needed to do to help make it work for their family. But she had such a heart of generosity and just such a heart for thinking of eternal things. She didn't let the temporal things distract her. So she, as a pastor's wife, would try and make extra money by crocheting doilies and selling those to make a little bit of extra money, but not so that her and her family could have more things. She was selling those so she could make more money in order to give it away to missionaries around the world. She was impacting her community by serving at their church, but she was also trying to make money to give to missions. She just recognized the importance of investing in the eternal things, not in the things that bring us comfort or the temporal things that are here today and gone tomorrow. And she left this incredible legacy that she passed on to her kids. Of her 6 kids, she wanted all of them to go into ministry and work in a church. And 5 of them did. 5 of them became pastors or evangelists or married to pastors. All of them, except for one. And the one that didn't go into the Christian service at a church or as an evangelist was my grandpa, who went into business. So Marie was my great-grandmother, and she instilled the values in my grandpa. She was kind of always a little dismayed that he went into business, and she was worried that he might become distracted by the things of the world. But she passed away the year my grandpa founded Hobby Lobby, actually. So she never got to see that her legacy of eternal thinking and investing in God's kingdom was passed even down to my grandpa, who went into business. And the legacy that she has left behind has been so significant as we try to incorporate that generosity and eternal thinking into business. And so I'll close with this quote that Marie would always say. This is actually originally written by a poet named C.T. Stead, who has an incredible story in and of himself. But I attribute it to my great-grandmother Marie, because she said it often. It was kind of the motto of her life. And that is, you have only one life, and it will soon pass. Only what's done for Christ will last. Let me pray for you all to close. God, I just thank you so much for the opportunity to just come in this time, in this 50 minutes, to just focus our hearts and set aside the distractions and listen to you through worship and through just what you have for us today. God, I pray that you would be with these students, that you would guide them and draw them to you and show them the path that you have for them in their work and how they are to live their lives serving you. God, through the ups and downs of their lives, God, I just pray that your hand would be on them, that you would show them your presence and continue to just give them your peace and your wisdom for discerning all the different aspects that can come at us in life. So God, I pray for them as they are in this season of college and here at Jessup. God, I pray for this school and the professors and the leadership, that they would just continue to do the good work that you have set before them, that they may be a light to this community, to this state, and to the world, God, that they would go out from here and just make incredible impact in this world for your purposes and for your kingdom. So God, we pray all of these things in your name. Amen.